Hello everyone, welcome back for some more Let's Read Fate Requiem. So, just a couple things before we go on. I totally realized that last time when we were talking about, Galahad, quote-unquote, it referred to the knight as having azure hair and peppermint eyes. Now, I'm not the best with colors, I'm gonna be real. However, every depiction of Galahad that we know, doesn't look like that at all. Now that's really interesting, especially because Koharu seemingly has that color scheme. So what's going on with that? I don't know yet. We're gonna have to learn, right? I'm really curious, but we'll have to see. But anyways, we're here. We're on chapter 3. I'm excited because again, I've been really enjoying reading this. But let's get going. I do have some wikis open just to help me when I need, right? Because I'm already seeing servant names that I'm like, I don't know who that is. So let us get started here with chapter 3. The next day, I paid a visit to a certain information broker. I brought Crown with me, and this time he was not refused entry. On the surface, it appeared to be a cozy little luxury hotel catered towards tourists. In the corner of the austere Renaissance-style lobby were two concierges, Caesar, the elder, and Lucrezia, the younger. Don't tell Vincent Valentine. The servant duo known together as the Borgia siblings. Okay, never heard of them. If it doesn't explain much, we'll Google that after. Calculating minds housed in youthful bodies, the kind of servant I was worst at dealing with. That's kind of most servants, I feel. The two were all but identical in stature and visage, as though they were twins, a boy and a girl, slim and graceful, the image of angelic purity. They answered to their master, the aging hotel manager, but it was common knowledge that almost all the management of the hotel was left to them. Caesar, or just Caesar, I guess, the elder, who in life had been the right hand of his father, the Pope. Can popes have children? That's strange. And with the rank of archbishop, had wielded authority both within and without the Holy See. Lucrezia, the younger, who armed with her heavenly beauty had married over and over into political advantage. The siblings' names were infamous even today, mostly in connection with the mysterious and untimely deaths met by many who opposed their ambitions. I have no clue who that is. I've never heard of them. My, if it isn't Aris. Good evening, Aris. The pair smiled at me with their elbows resting on the marble reception desk. We thought it was about time for you to pay us a visit. The child you have with you, so he's the masterless servant everyone's talking about? I turned a blind eye to their proddings. The boy must have taken a shine to the antique goggles in my apartment, as he'd worn them all the way here. The siblings nonchalantly slid me a shot glass across the counter as they greeted us. The sharp scent of spirits wafted through the air. I can't. I'm underage. I would have to choose my words carefully and be cautious in my every move with these two. They offered some juice instead, and Pram reached out for it. I placed a firm hand on his shoulder and pulled him back behind me. Would you happen to know anything about it? Lucrezia gently crossed her legs on the tall desk behind the chair and shook her head. Unfortunately not, or at least nothing more than what's available on the municipal network. But that aside, perhaps you might be interested in this. Caesar placed a storage device on the desk. It had been bigger than my little finger and was equipped with a magical lock. Anyone designated as the key could access the information it contained directly, without the need for a smartphone or similar device, but it was otherwise very difficult to hack. What am I looking at? A list of citizens who have attempted to conduct unsanctioned summonings, ranging from the day before yesterday to several days prior, with particular emphasis on those whose rituals failed or ended prematurely. I see. This would be the first step in any investigation barring an extraordinary stroke of luck. It's precious information that would ordinarily take a great deal of time and effort to gather, and now was being offered all too easily. Unsanctioned summons were illegal, of course, but the invasions of others' privacy also carried heavy penalties in Mosaic City. Although if one balked at the notion of invading others' privacy, the profession of information broker perhaps wasn't for them. What a curiously generous offer. We're simply glad to be of service to you, Reese. I'm delighted to hear it. These siblings would often require payment in more than money. In the past, I'd had to let slip secrets I'd learned of the criminal underworld in exchange for their information. More than a few times, it would later come to light that a servant I had disposed of had been someone they considered an inconvenience. I didn't like to admit it, but odds were good that I was playing an unwitting puppet on invisible strings, so caution was vital. I gently withdrew the hand I extended towards the storage device. It was an alluring bait, but more than likely poisoned. Actually, it's not because of him that I'm here today. Well then, what are you here for? Chitose came here, didn't she? Sometime last night, most likely. The siblings' expressions were inscrutable, and were waiting to see what move I would make. I've had my assignments from Karen. I gotta remember the names. I'm just gonna call her Karen. It just makes it easier to call it Karen and Kareen. I've had my assignments from Karen suspended. I'll be closing up business for a while. There isn't much I can do for you even if I wanted to. Césaire measured up myself and Pran, his chin resting on the palm of his hand. Business, eh? You know, Aris, there are many people who suffer because of your work, and a scarce few who benefit from it. But above all, Lucrezia continued where her brother left off, you yourself gain little from it, do you? What's wrong with taking this opportunity to enjoy a little vacation away from it all? If it's retribution from people who've crossed that concerns you, we can show you a wonderful safe house, although it might weigh a little heavy on the wallet. A safe house, you say? Well, this clinched it. Chitose had come here and coerced them, threatened them, but it seemed they had no intention of concealing that fact. So, what did that mean? There must have been something else they were hiding. I had no choice but to show my hand. I heaved a theatrical sigh. You know, I had a little chat with the relic salesman in the Akiba department store. He mentioned that when Kundry attempted to procure the materials for an unsanctioned summoning, a certain information broker intervened to vouch for her. An interesting story, don't you think? It wasn't a bluff. I'd returned to the relic shop after parting ways with Kareen on the previous day. I've also heard there have been some new traps on the market recently. Ones that leech power from ley lines that have proven very popular among less savory times. If you know anything, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could share it. It's very important that I be properly prepared just in case you understand. Well, how about it, Signor? Signora. Their expressions stiffened for the slightest of moments. Even if I wasn't currently on direct assignment from Municipal Administration AI, I still had just cause to take immediate action if I personally witnessed an attempt to interfere with the city's infrastructure. Oh, Aris, you best us yet again. Lucrezia gave a tinkling laugh as she leaned over her brother's back. Stretching over his shoulder, she took back the storage device on the table before setting down a new one. Surprise and a hint of protest marred Césaire's otherwise unreadable expression. It seemed that this time the sister had read one move further ahead. They do say there is no word no in the concierge dictionary. Is that not so, Caesar? So it is, Lucrezia. So it is. These servants live their lives atop the thinnest layer of ice. If I were to start asking the wrong questions, they would be finished as information brokers. If they wanted to avoid that fate, they had no choice but to reveal their own hands. With my work here done, I departed the lobby. Felt no desire to stay. This was a tranquil and beautiful place. It was not one to remain in for long. Its noxious atmosphere made it hard to breathe. 3 spouses and 8 children. Wonder what that feels like. There's no end to the mystery surrounding these siblings, and I found my thoughts turning to the sister in particular. Historically, Lucrezia had been nothing more than a pawn used to engineer political marriages, but I wonder how much influence she really exerted over her brother, Césaire, and her father, Pope Alexander VI. I wonder if they had not in fact been her puppets, dancing on the strings of the spider at the heart of the web. Till next time, Reaper, we look forward to your next visit. The siblings waved goodbye as they saw me off from behind the counter. Goodbye. I waved back in polite response. We decided to take a break at a nearby coffee shop, the Bookshop Cafe Borges, where one could relax surrounded by a veritable forest of tomes from the old world. It was one of my favorite relaxation spots. The first floor comprised a cafe area, a wide space for pleasant conversation. An open stairwell led to the second floor, where innumerable bookshelves stood crammed together so tightly it looked like the floor might give out. Sofas and chairs were placed between the labyrinthine shelves, on which one could fully immerse themselves in the pleasure of reading. So I'm doing right now, enjoying the pleasure of reading. On a whim, I asked the aging, mild-mannered shopkeeper and learned that they indeed have a first edition English print of The Little Prince in their collection. It may not have been a personal artifact of the man himself, but it could certainly have been a sufficient catalyst to summon Saint-Exupéry. However, when I showed the manuscript to Prin, he exhibited no special response. In the end, all I learned was that he was capable of reading and writing English. The quirky illustrations at least seemed to capture his interest, although as usual he reacted poorly to the snake. I was far from giving up on the search for his true name, but I could not justify pursuing the Saint-Exupéry connection any further out of anything but my own wishful thinking. Over a light lunch, I decided to check the storage device the Borgia siblings had given me, and the shock I felt on seeing the news recorded therein was enough to obliterate any trace of lingering attachment to Saint-Exupéry. They called it the Command Seal Hunter. A chain of murders had visited Mosaic City, connected by a common thread. All the victims had died with their command seals stolen, forcibly severed from their body with the appendages that bore them. No reports had yet been issued from Akihabara, but people had been found dead in other wards, and the victims were not the kind of underground magi that I was used to tangling with. They were ordinary citizens. In this new world, where illness and death had been conquered, the most common place to see the names of people who had died was in murder reports. Some things could not be avoided, even with the protection of the Holy Grail. I thought that was what I was here for. One of the most unusual aspects about this particular series of crimes was the amount of time that had elapsed before they were discovered. If the victims had been killed and their bodies concealed, finding them would have been comparatively easy, if that was what the Karen series were for. However, this was not what had happened. Instead, for several days after being stripped of their command seals, the victims had continued to live their lives as normal. One of them had the command seals on his right hand stolen, and he wore just a glove to conceal the wound. A glove. And what's more, there was no record of these command seals being used in the interim. There were records here of conversations they had with neighbors, meaningless small talk. Each and every one of them had concealed the wound they'd suffered, some skillfully, others very poorly. The truth was often only discovered after they had suddenly collapsed unconscious in the middle of whatever they were doing, or perhaps some task in their daily lives had required the use of a command seal, and only then had others pointed out the abnormality where their command seals used to be. Some sort of drug to dull their sense of pain? Perhaps incredibly powerful hypnosis? No, impossible. Some of them lost whole limbs for crying out loud. How could someone not realize their own throat had been torn out, but they must... I shuddered. The victims must already have been dead at that point when their command seals were taken, then their lifeless bodies had continued to act out their daily routine. This was a case unlike anything I'd ever seen. My appetite slowly disappeared as I read further. Was a servant responsible for these murders or a magus? Both were possible. And with the rate that these cases were appearing, and the time that had elapsed before their discovery, it was more than possible that the victims were walking the streets of Akihabara right now. This wasn't something I could ignore. I gulped and cast a glance around the cafe. My gaze lingered involuntarily on a woman with gloved hands, at a customer wearing unusually thick clothing. Then I saw the command seal glowing on the back of their hand. They were merely communicating with their servant. The command seals of the pre- and post-war worlds were supposedly very different. In a true Holy Grail war, their use would be limited. They would be visibly divided into a number of distinct strokes, usually 3. 3 strokes, with 1 use per stroke, for a total of 3 uses before they were gone, or so I had heard anyway. The past was often less convenient than the present, I supposed. Command seals in this new world were different on almost all accounts. For a start, they were not divided into distinct parts. At first glance, they may appear to be partitioned in 3, but upon closer inspection would reveal they actually comprised a detailed interlinking pattern that would fade on usage proportional to the amount of mana expended. Secondly, a faded command seal would recover with time, courtesy of the Grail replenishing its mana. The recovery time varied a little from person to person depending on their aptitude for magecraft, but broadly speaking, it would only take a few days. Third, while as the name implied, command seals were traditionally used to command one servant, temporarily strengthening their abilities, this had become less and less of a necessity as a result of the dramatic change in master-servant relations. Nowadays, they were often utilized as a simple mana source, and as a means of granting the master access to thaumaturgy. If anything, in today's world, that had become the more common usage. Only 2 people in the city did not possess a set of command seals, myself and Manazuru Chitose. Chitose, however, still retained the command seal she had obtained during her own Grail War. Perhaps that had made little practical difference in everyday life, but it was still more than I had. A group of 3 entered the cafe. 2 tall men and a young girl barely half their height. The girl exchanged a few words with one of her companions and grinned. She had a more familiar-looking white coat draped over her shoulders. Haruko? What's she doing here? She swept her gaze around the cafe and gave a small start. Clearly, she had seen me too. The child seated next to me probably hadn't helped make me any less conspicuous. I noticed that the hat she usually wore low over her face was absent today. Further apart, her companions were visibly muscular and exuded a distinct aura. It was obvious at first glance, to me at least, that they were servants. In the lead was a cheerful-looking man in the late throes of middle-aged with copper skin and a lush beard. The other man trailing behind was almost his polar opposite. A young man with sickly pale skin and a melancholic demeanor, and silver hair drawn together into a rough ponytail that cascaded down his back. A friend of yours, Koharu? Of a sort. We attend lectures at the same community college. She's the Reaper, you know. Get too close and she'll steal your soul. Galahad? Shush! Okay, so yeah, I was gonna say that one with the white hair. That sounds like the Galahad I know. Okay, Galahad? Shush! Haruko was quick to meet the pale man's sardonic interjection with a quick rebuke. He acted nonplussed, but said no more. She seemed very different from the way she usually came across during class. However, more to the point, they know I'm the Reaper. Wait, what, Galahad? He looks nothing like the knight I saw on screen, although... That's right, I suppose he wouldn't, would he? One of your classmates, eh? Well, why don't we pull up some chairs and get acquainted? The middle-aged man spoke to Haruko. Koharu? That he called her? Is that her real name? Oh boy, I'm gonna call her both of these, because that's confusing. Is that her real name then? With odd familiarity. She nodded in assent, albeit a little hesitantly. We moved over to a round table. Ha! Ha ha! A round table. Get it? It's okay. That's funny. The middle-aged man sat next to Koharu, opposite Pran and I, with his stout hairy arms rested heavily on the table, grinning at the 2 of us. He was dressed in a short-sleeved safari shirt and a pair of shorts, and looked for all the world like a visiting tourist. The intellectual air lent by his round-framed glasses made for a curious contrast with the rest of his outfit. Galahad sat at the side, leaning back disinterestedly on his chair. He wore a deep purple, indigo, dress shirt rolled up to his elbows and black skinny jeans. Yep, that sounds like what a casual Galahad would wear. The shirt lay open at the collar to reveal a chest even paler than his arms. Their arrival at the cafe had caused an evident stir. The rest of the customers had shrunk back from our table, and I could feel their glances burning into me. This is awkward. This must be life when you're a celebrity, a Grail tournament winner. Only a few minutes ago, I had been overwhelmed by the terror and the panic of the serial killings, but for the time being, those feelings have been shut away firmly in a box and neatly shelved. The man leaned forward with an amiable smile. I must say, it came as quite a shock to learn Koharu was classmates with the famous Reaper. Not as shocked as I am, I replied. It's hard to believe I'm sitting across the table from Hannibal of Carthage. Who? We'll learn. I feel a little uncertain how to react to someone I'd only just met referring to me as a Reaper, but my words and respect were sincere, even if I was talking to a participant in the Grail tournament. Hannibal's the commander of the team I've been assigned to, Koharu supplied, a little hesitant. Your team? You mean the next tournament is going to be a team battle? Indeed it is, Hannibal folded his arm with evident confidence. And the newest member of our team won the rookie tournament handily. Our victory is all but assured. Hannibal, I'm not that good. Koharu shrank back red-faced. Could hardly blame her. If a general as famous as Hannibal, I'm gonna have to look him up. If a general as famous as Hannibal had placed me in such high esteem, I probably would have done the same. Don't worry, I get it. Although it's a bit of a surprise to see that you can even look embarrassed once in a while. I get to cart around the kid and her great-granddad. I'm telling you now, I don't do bedtime stories. Or hospice care. What? Galahad chipped in with another snide remark, and Koharu rounded on him again, teeth baring in a hissing snarl. Hey, who? I'm Googling it. I'm looking to the side. Hannibal of Carthage? Who? Hannibal. Okay. Hannibal was a Carthaginian general and statesman who commanded the forces of Carthage in battle against the Roman Republic. Okay. Hannibal was regarded as one of the most greatest military tacticians and one of the greatest generals of Mediterranean antiquity, together with Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. Hey, I've never heard of this guy. Yeah, I've literally... I've never heard of this guy. The teenage Sigmund Freud regarded Hannibal as his hero. In the musical Phantom of the Opera, a fictional opera about Hannibal called Hannibal appears at the beginning of the musical. Huh. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking here and I literally have... I've never heard it. I've never heard of this dude. Ever. So. Well, now I know. In time, I think, I learned that Hannibal's master was currently negotiating conditions with members of other teams. Koharu had shown the trio to this cafe during a break in the discussions. Expanding a servant's range of independent action in this way was among the most common uses of command seals. Okay. That's cool to know. The sheer volume of information flooding in from across the table was overwhelming, and it was difficult to even know where to begin to reply. Until yesterday, I'd barely even known what the Grail tournament was. I cast a sidelong glance at the Knight of the Grail, who was preoccupying himself with his meal in haughty silence, although I noticed that he was only picking at his roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, and was focused primarily on his glass of red wine. Again, the polar opposite of Hannibal's healthy appetite. It occurred to me that if Koharu had been attending the pre-war human history lectures, Galahad had also been likely present in spirit form. It was likely that he already knew me. We had probably passed by each other many times without my knowing it. Planning to stare all day, Reaper? If you want a bite, you only have to ask. He made to push his plate towards me. I was only stopped by Koharu's grip on his arm. Not sure I envy her this one. Kareen's words from yesterday came back to me. How sincere other people are isn't something you get to decide. Many servants had gotten accustomed to life in this new peaceful world. However, others had spent their entire lives on the battlefield and dedicated themselves wholly to the craft of war. It came down to the individual whether they had their fill of fighting or still lusted for blood. Hannibal, it seemed, was the latter kind, which meant that this was the fate indicated to his master by the Grail. Grail tournament was a precious opportunity for such servants to let themselves loose to their heart's content in pursuit of exhilaration and glory. I suppose that was, in its own way, a kind of freedom. But that's not why Koharu is here. She isn't like the rest of them. She's different somehow. The Grail tournament was yet to officially publicize any information regarding the background of one Koharu F. Riedenflaus, but my own investigations had borne some modest fruit. House Riedenflaus was a family of magi associated with the clock tower with its roots in necromantic traditions. They were low in status compared to the elite of the Magus Association, and their history only spanned a few centuries. However, it seemed their long-time occupation of the seat at the foot of the aristocrats' table had been enough to grant them entry to the city. The promoter of the Grail tournament was none other than this House Riedenflaus. In other words, they were acting and brazenly flouting the first precept of the Mage Association, the concealment of the mysteries. Oh, that's kind of true, huh? I was curious as to how their mentality had evolved to suit this new post-war world, but it was something else I uncovered in this course of my investigations that had drawn my interest. That their family's magic revolved around the creation of artificial life forms, or homunculi. Koharu's youthful appearance had led me to assume that she was a member of the new generation. However, now that I know her surname, I was beginning to wonder if it had indicated something else entirely. Hannibal regaled us with anecdotes of his past exploits as we ate. I listened, half fascinated and half starstruck, as he spoke with good humor of the great defeat his army had faced on the field of battle. The tale also seemed to have caught Pran's interest because he listened carefully. Eventually, he chimed in with an unexpected question. What's a war? Not only myself, but Koharu, Hannibal, and even Galahad had stared at him with mouths agape. What's a war? He repeated. Well, it's a war, right? Like a battle. I knew that hardly constituted an answer, but I was at a loss as to how to respond. Oh, that was her. The idea of a servant ignorant to the very concept of war had taken us all by surprise. Like, killing? That's right. Lots of killing. More than you can ever imagine. Hannibal's voice was composed, but his gaze was chilly through his round-framed glasses. And yet we humans never seem to tire of it. It's just a part of who we are. Not a single day in all of human history had passed devoid of war. A heroic spirit who doesn't know what war is. Impossible. A part of me hoped for another sarcastic quip from Galahad, anything to change the subject, but none were forthcoming. He sat with mouth pursed firmly closed. The gazes drilling into Pran were beginning to make me feel distinctly uneasy, and I hurriedly asked Hannibal for another story of his time as a general. It was at times like this that I appreciated Karian's power to effortlessly lighten the mood. A few minutes passed before I noticed that Koharu was gazing at her lap in listless silence. I thought to call out to her, but my mouth had already gotten half open before her eyes suddenly stabbed at me. Is something the matter? Miss Riedenflaus? I was just wondering. She raised a hand to stop me. Please, just call me Koharu. I'm the youngest here, after all. I see. My next question almost tumbled from my mouth before I could stop it, but I managed to bite it back just in time. What are you thinking? You can't just ask her that. What are you expecting her to say? Why, yes, I'm a homunculus. Thank you very much for asking. It would have been bigoted, self-centered, and an invasion of privacy all in one. To probe people who would call my interest for their weak points was an unfortunate habit of mine. I saw footage of you fighting at the rookie tournament. Watching you fighting to the bitter end against an opponent like that, it was amazing. I'm not sure I could do that even if I had the strongest servant in the world beside me. Thank you very much. Koharu lowered her eyes, blushing fiercely. I know I got very lucky, but managing to win made me really happy. She gave a smile that was mostly bashful, although somewhere in there was a flicker of pride. Watching her struggle to contain her delight, I could wish her only the best. Half of what I said had been borrowed from a certain JK, but I had rewatched the video since, and my admiration was the real thing. If you don't know what JK and JC is, just look it up. You'll understand. I'm sorry about yesterday. I was very rude to you. She spoke sheepishly, eyes fixed firmly on the fingertips she was pressing together. Don't sweat it. I get that you're in a hurry. Thank you. I was in such a rush. It just kind of came out. This girl was modest to a fault. Perhaps that was sincerity, and perhaps that was that sincerity, the warrior's pride she displayed in spite of rage, and invited me to lower her guard. Whatever the case, I got ahead of myself and asked something I would not have even put to Kareen. I was wondering if I could ask you something. I wanted to know more about the armored knight I'd seen on screen. Perhaps, I wondered, there might be something I could learn from her about my own curse. Could you tell me about a little more about that possession they mentioned on the program? My possession? Koharu cast a hesitant gaze at Galahad. Oh. Okay. I kind of considered if they would go this way, right? Where it's like, is it going to be like demi-servant possession again? And I didn't think they would. Maybe that's just how Galahad rolls. Maybe that's just like what Galahad does as a servant for like everyone. Huh. Okay. Now wait just a moment, you two. For a while, Hannibal had been content to just watch us, but now he interrupted. I could see half-chewed food still in his mouth as he spoke. If you wish to learn more of her abilities, you must see them for yourself. We are not scribes with pen and parchment. We are warriors with sword and spear and fist. Come to the Colosseum, Maurice, and watch us do battle. It should not be long before our next bout. You mean you're inviting her to spectate? Aren't the tickets all sold out? I suppose we could hope for cancellations, but there are always so many people waiting. The notion of acquiring tickets through anything other than official channels seemed to genuinely not have occurred to Koharu. Hannibal, laughing heartily, informed her that there were always other ways. And so I ended up exchanging contact details with Koharu F. Riedenflaus, the celebrity. She promised to inform me as soon as she had gotten hold of tickets, although she seemed a little bewildered by the way things had transpired. It was comforting to know that I was not the only one who felt they had lost control of the conversation. At this point, there's no way I can tell them I really don't care all that much about the tournament. For a while, I phased out. In the end, it was Galahad who brought me crashing back to reality. Been too long entertaining the elderly, and you'll become one of them before you know it, Reaper. Galahad? You got something to ask, just ask it. Koharu will jump at the chance to trade it for anything you've got in the stigmata. I guarantee it. We still don't really know what the stigmata is. Utter silence. For a moment, I struggled for a response, and then with a clatter, Koharu grabbed her fork, lifted it, and drove it back down towards the table with all her might. Directly in its path lay Galahad's hand. My and Pran's eyes widened in shock. An attack from an ordinary human would appear as though in slow motion to a servant, and I felt as though he would dodge it with ease. But as I watched, it became clearer and clearer that he had no intention of moving a muscle. Thud. The fork slammed down just between his fingers, with barely a couple of millimeters to spare. You should learn some manners, my lady. Just look what you've done to our round table. My apologies. I promise I'll pay for it. Koharu apologized for her poor behavior and hung her head in silence. Hannibal stood up, apparently unfazed by the discord between his compatriots. I'm sorry, but I have to depart. My master is calling for me. The trio finished, paid the proprietor. Oh, so his chapters had a couple really silly sentences. The trio finished and paid the proprietors for the damage to their table and left the shop. Or maybe there's a comma there. I don't know. That's every now and then. There's just I've noticed that little bits of this chapter where it's like you're missing stuff, guys. Come on. Left alone with Crown once more, I found myself wondering what sort of person Hannibal's master might be. The two were bound together by the fate indicated by the Grail. Would they be Hannibal's equal, carefree and bold? Or would they be his opposite, a stern, cold tactician? Masters and servants. Sometimes, like Koharu and Galahad, their relationship was impossible to understand from the outside. I tried to return to my previous train of thought about the Command Seal Hunter, but something from the previous conversation continued to niggle at me. You're being silly, Reese. Stop overthinking things. There was no logical reason that they, likely the strongest warriors in Mosaic City, had put me so ill at ease, but got something to ask, just ask it. On the face of it, Galahad had simply been referring to my questions about Koharu. However, I felt something deeper there, something urging me on. Maybe Chitose and Miss Fujimura didn't want me involved in this, but I couldn't just sit here and do nothing. On a sudden impulse, I left Khan in the care of the shopkeeper and dashed out of the cafe. Luck was on my side, and I managed to catch up with the trio on the road to the Coliseum. I flagged them down and came to a stop in front of them, my breathing ragged. If you know I'm the Reaper, then let me at least give you a warning. While keeping my voice low, conscious of being overheard by passers-by, I told them everything. I just learned about the Command Seal Hunter, about the mysterious indiscriminate murders that were now being suppressed from the Municipal Information Network, and the servants who had become collateral damage. If you want to know more, it's all in this data drive. Are you sure? I released the lock on the storage drive and replaced it with Koharu's personal signature. She extended a grateful hand to take it. Thank you. No worries. I didn't know if I had managed to fully convince them of the gravity of the situation, but they had at least taken me seriously enough to listen without bursting out in laughter. Even if no victims had yet been discovered in this ward, we cannot risk any harm coming to the spectators. It may be tricky, but I will see about raising the matter with the security staff. Oh, that was him. Thank you, Hannibal. In any case, we cannot allow anyone to interfere with Rome's downfall. The general set his fingers to his chin and flashed a brilliant smile. Oh, Nero would hate him. That sounds awfully confident for you of all servants. What? Don't tell me you're a Rome supporter, Eris. But our next opponents aren't even Roman. Koharu cocked her head, puzzled. Just ignore him. Galahad's tone was as sardonic as ever. Start giving old men the time of day and they'll never shut up. Please do come to the tournament, Eris. With those parting words, Koharu turned around and headed back towards the arena with her companions. She did not look back. That was a short chapter. Oh my god. Damn. Damn. These are all the different Karen models, huh? Damn. What a woman. What does that say, I wonder? I wonder if I can, like... Oh, my phone's not nearby. I was going to take my phone. I was going to see if I could just translate what that says. Probably something just talks about the Karen series AI, right? I bet that's probably just what it says. Okay, so the one thing I want to look up is who are those... Okay, the Borgia siblings. Let's see here. Type Moon Wiki. Oh, they have pictures. Oh god, they are way younger than I thought. That's funny that I type it in and the first thing that comes up is the Fate Requiem. So much for them being like super famous if that's what comes up first. Lucrezia Borgia was a Spanish-Italian noblewoman of the House Borgia and daughter of Pope Alexander. Again, weird that they can have babies. I didn't know about that. Rumors about her family cast Lucrezia as a femme fatale. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, we're looking at Lucrezia first. First marriage, Lord of Pisario, alleged affair. Second marriage, Alfonso de Aragon. He's a duke and a prince. Third marriage, Alfonso d'Este, Duke of Ferrara. She's described as having blonde hair past her knees, a high full bosom, walked on air. Rumors. Several rumors have persisted over the years, primarily speculating as to the nature of extravagant parties thrown by the Borgia family. One example is the Banquet of Chestnuts, which is was a festival in Rome. Many of these concern allegations of incest, poisoning, and murder on her part. However, no historical bias for these rumors have ever been brought forward. It is rumored that Lucrezia was in possession of a hollow ring that she used to poison drinks. An early 20th century painting that hangs in the London Art Gallery portrays Lucrezia taking the place of her father in an official Vatican meeting. This apparently documents an actual event, although the precise moment was invented by the artist. Lucrezia was mother to 7 or 8 children. Yep, that's a lot. You know when they lose count, that's crazy. Alright, I'm just looking here. Literature. Does she appear here for Fate? She does not. We need to add that there. I'm going to need to add that. Because she's not on there. Maybe film and television? Let's see here. Marvel. She's a major plot point in the 1994 TV movie The Shaggy Dog. You mean the one that became the Tim Allen movie? What? Okay. In the video games Assassin's Creed, Lucrezia is in an incestuous relationship with her brother Césaire. Of course. Okay. And Césaire, just looking here. Some interesting things. Feel like he has a lot less, huh? Church office, military, later years in death, the remains. Yeah, there's a lot less with him than the other. Interesting. She's kind of the leader. Huh. Neat. Alright. Well, that was a shorter chapter in general, huh? That was just a shorter chapter. But, with that said, it was a good one. I really enjoyed it. It felt very natural, and it answered definitely some of my questions, right? So she's a possession style user. Koharu / Hokaru / Haruko / whatever her name is actually. I'm going to call her both till we know. But yeah. All right. Sounds good. Thank you all for joining me. And next time we'll be moving on to chapter 4 where we continue. There's a bit of a preview there, but I'm not going to read it. So we'll see you then for some more, guys. Ciao.
You can push yourself to be strong.